welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Dr. Robert Hurley, professor at Fordham and author of The Decision to Trust. He's probably a professor of marketing, considering the topic trust. Hi, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Judith.
Yeah, so tell me, what do you teach at Fordham?
I teach management.
You teach management. Okay, well that, I suppose, goes along with trust.
Yes, most definitely.
I have to tell you something. Let's first, it's a heavy topic, so I want to get right to it, but I just want to clarify. What kind of trust are we talking about? Are we talking about trust between people without regard, marital trust, parental trust, teacher trust, financial trust? What are we talking about here?
Well, the book's about trust in general, and particularly in a business realm. I do talk a little bit about trust in government, but I don't venture into the marital trust. That's a whole separate.
That's another whole issue. But there are some overlays for sure.
No question about it. I mean, if you read the book, you'll learn quite a bit about trust.
Trust is an umbrella term.
Yes,
okay.
And but I'm more concerned about trust in leadership, trust in organizations, which really is in business and government, less so in the...
Okay, now, you've done something that I never thought could be done. You've taken trust and turned it into an intellectual learning skill as opposed to emotional.
Yes.
That's pretty surprising. So you talk about learning how to trust. Is learning how to trust the same thing as learning how to read?
No. Learning how to read is...
or learning any other academic skill?
No, it's a little different. So trust has two dimensions. There's a cognitive, intellectual dimension. I assess your capability, et cetera. And it also has an emotional piece. I trust you because I just feel comfortable. I feel that you're a member of my tribe, so to speak. So trust is complicated in that sense because it has intellectual and emotional components.
Right.
I tend to emphasize the more cognitive, intellectual components because, for the following reason. If you understand trustworthiness, if you can accurately assess trustworthiness, you can actually build trust. So the emotion can then follow.
Okay. So this is a skill that can be learned or acquired.
Yes.
Okay.
You can learn how to trust. You can learn how to be trustworthy.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to learn how to trust. In your book, you have some factors, 8 or 10 factors that contribute to learning how to trust. Of all of them, what is the single most important? Let's start with that.
Well, let me just a little background.
Or do I need a little background first?
A little background on the model. So there's a 10-factor model that I use that describes the decision to trust. Okay. And it describes what people consider in deciding to trust. And there are two basic components there. One is the trustor's components, i.e., you're deciding to trust me.
Okay, so the person who has to give the trust.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's the relationship elements, which have to do with our relationship and the situation we're in. So the most important thing in terms of the trustor, so I identify 3 factors that affects disposition to trust. Adjustment.
What do you mean by adjustment?
Adjustment is what psychologists would call neuroticism. People who are anxious.
We're ordinary folk here. Break it down a little bit.
Some people worry about things, and some people don't worry as much.
Okay.
People who worry more have more issues with trust.
Okay.
People who don't, they think, well,
is
gee,
control related to trust? If you're a controlling person, are you less likely to trust?
Most people who are high control people are people who have difficulty trusting.
Okay.
So control is a substitute for trust for them.
Thinking that only you can do it.
Exactly. Because they don't trust, they want to control things. So I talk in the book about the classic micromanager. And this is really an issue in organizations. You may have a manager, a leader in an organization who doesn't trust, and so they don't delegate. And because they don't delegate, if you work for me, I'm a micromanager, I don't delegate to you. Or I give you a task, but I keep checking on you.
Right.
Well, guess what? Now you start to not develop. You start to, no, I don't trust you. You may even lose confidence, and you're not going to be very excited working for me.
Yeah, and I don't want to go, and I'm going to do everything, but Bob, is it not possible that the person who is not willing to trust or is incapable of trusting has been burned by so many times when he or she has trusted and been let down?
Yes.
I mean, wouldn't you be, if that happened to you, wouldn't you be a little foolish to continue to trust?
So that's interesting. Absolutely right. So some
Is that a
people's
fair question?
Fair question. Some people's experience is they've been burned. By the way, when you look at the research on this, children of alcoholics, children of drug addicts, almost always grow up to have trust issues because when they were in a
Well, why
formative
not?
stage,
Yeah.
they were betrayed by people who were supposed to be trustworthy. Right? Now, here's the thing. Suppose that happens, and suppose you then go into every situation in your life not trusting anyone. Guess what? You lose out.
Well, sure.
You lose out. So what this book is about is, how do you make a good decision to trust? Let's take some of the emotion out of it. Let's not bring our baggage that I've been betrayed, 15 times before. I might actually need somebody who's trustworthy. And if I withhold that trust, we're not going to have a relationship. So what I try and do is I try and say, okay, let's make a good trust decision. What are the factors that I can consider to assess trustworthiness? Okay. Now, it may be that someone's not trustworthy, but it may be that they are.
So, okay, so let's go to what are the factors that, let's say, okay, you're beyond that. Now you're going to try to trust. So what is the first thing you're going to assess?
So there are 6 core elements that you should assess.
Okay, let's
First
go slow.
is similarities. Do we have similar values?
Okay, all right.
And are we part of the same network, right? Do we have sort of a tribal connection? Right? If you're a member
we
of
have some glaring examples of that, but let's continue.
Right, and sometimes that can betray trust, but you tend to trust people who have similar values to you.
Yeah.
Second,
We're not going to even go into Bernie Madoff, but that's a
right.
glaring example of why that is.
By the way, he understood trust very well enough to use it against people.
Exactly.
Second thing is the alignment of interests. If our interests are aligned, I should probably trust you.
Right.
But if our interests are in conflict, I shouldn't trust.
So if I'm investing with a financial firm who only makes money if I money, that's a greater likelihood of perhaps being able to trust that person to make good decisions for me.
Exactly right. Alignment of interest, absolutely critical.
So that's what you mean by alignment of interest.
Yeah.
If you're a salesman, if I'm a buyer and you're a seller, and I buy your product, you want to continue the relationship. So you have every reason to sell me a worthy product so I can continue.
Right.
Another example of alignment?
You pull into the used car lot. Salesman comes in to approach you.
Well, I start out distrusting.
Right. Well, you pull in there and the salesman's walking to you. What do you think? He wants to sell me any car in the lot, and he wants to be done with me quick.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a conflict of interest.
I mistrust the whole brand.
Right. Right. On the other hand, there are other sales relationships where they actually do care about serving your interests because they want a long-term relationship.
Exactly.
Right. So alignment of interest is critical.
I just want to inject, and I want to get to it. My company that manufactured, my company's name was Wesco. I'm Judith West. I figured, is anybody going to really think I'll use my last name to give them bad stuff? Why would I blemish my own brand, my own name? Like Johnson & Johnson. I believe, sort of like that.
That's a great example.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have similarity of interest. Next.
So we have similarities. We have alignment of interest. Next one is benevolence.
Benevolence.
Do you care about people? So, right, we tend to trust people who we know care about others. Right? Think about how many people do you know who would lay awake at night at the very prospect of betraying somebody? Right? We know people like that.
A few.
Yeah, and we trust them.
Oh,
On the other hand, we know some people who might betray their grandmother if they got an advantage and not lose a minute's sleep. Right. We tend not to trust them.
And there are industries that have that whole cloud hanging over them. Okay, we got to move on. I want to get out through this. We only have 5 minutes left. Next.
Capability. You have to assess someone's capability. It's not a good idea to trust somebody who's incompetent.
Can you do that from a look?
No. This is the problem with the presidential campaigns. We're not very rigorous in assessing capability.
No, we're not very rigorous or very good at it.
No. We assess oratory skills. Well, guess what?
Or looks.
Or looks.
Yeah, hey, how about this? How about the guy that trusts the woman because she's good looking when she walks in?
It happens. You get fooled.
You get fooled.
Right? You have to actually consider all of these different elements. Otherwise, you're going to make a bad trust decision.
I want to get to so we have 4. Now, the 5th?
Integrity and predictability. Random people don't generate much trust, right? When you decide to trust me, one of the things you have to figure out is, can you predict what I'm going to do?
Well, I trusted your credentials.
Right.
And thankfully I haven't been fooled.
That's the capability.
Been fooled, but that was how I used it.
That was the capability.
I had to find a new doctor today. I went online. I want to see what school he went to. Blah,
exactly.
Blah, 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 and I trusted the pedigree.
Right. So that's capability. That's competence.
Okay.
The other piece is predictability and integrity. Does someone practice what they preach? Do they honor their word?
Do they call you back?
Do they call you back? Are they predictable? Are they reliable?
Right.
Right? So integrity is an interesting one, right? Because it's a crazy world we live in, right? Sometimes people say A, but they do B. But the person with integrity, the honorable person, goes back and says, you know, I breached that integrity. I said I was going to do A. I did B. I apologize. I'm going to make it right, and I'm not going to repeat that. That's high integrity.
Okay. Let me ask you something, Dr. Hurley. I get everything you say, and I think everyone does that's watching. How, in a word, in a couple of words, we only have a couple of minutes, how do you actually teach that to people? Isn't some of this just gut?
That's the problem, is we make gut decisions on trust, and we often make trust errors.
Well, so tell me how you change, when we only have 2 minutes, from gut to learning or to teaching.
You learn these 6 factors, and you learn how to assess them in the people you're dealing with, you'll make a better trust decision. By the way, the last one is communication.
Oh, that's
Is
good.
somebody transparent? Will they tell you what you need to know, even though it may damage their interests, right? Do they listen to you? Do they understand your needs? You can actually assess these 6 things and make better trust decisions and trust people who are worthy of trust and withhold trust from people who are untrustworthy.
Yeah, but when you go through life and you have more untrustworthy decisions happening to you than trustworthy, how can you really remodel yourself to say, the next guy I meet, I'm going to trust?
You know,
is that a bad question?
No, it's a great question.
We only have about a minute left. Tell me.
So you need to think that not everybody is going to fulfill every need that you have, right? Some people are going to betray you, but a lot of people aren't. If you distrust everybody, you leave a lot on the table. You lose a lot of opportunities.
One of my first psychology professors, I'm not telling you how long ago that was, but anyways, master's degree, he said something I've never forgotten. Mistrust people and they'll never let you down.
Right, and that you can take that orientation of distrust, but you lose a lot. You're not going to have great relationships. You're not going to mobilize a team to achieve great things if you don't trust. You'll be a micromanager, and not trusting people has its own downside.
Yep. I mean, you know, I'm a control freak, but I call myself, Alex, I like it better, I call myself a perfectionist.
Right.
But it's kind of the same thing as not trusting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
But you can learn to trust.
I can learn to. All right, well, for starters, I can read your book, The Decision to Trust, and I'm a fast learner. And thank you for being on this show, and I hope that it's a very interesting topic. I'd like to have you back sometime, because there's a whole body of stuff we didn't discuss, like what are we going to do about politicians that we elect because we trust them, and then they don't trust. They don't perform.
Right.
Anyway, thanks for being on the show. I'm glad.
Glad to be here.
You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West. Thank you for watching.